Welcome to Om on the Range, where we share the practice of meditation, the wisdom of Western Buddhism, and the refuge of our community. Whether you are new to meditation or a longtime practitioner, committed or curious, this offering is here to share solutions, stories, and support. Happiness and better health are available to everyone. It just takes practice. This is Om on the Range. Hello and welcome to Om on the Range. I'm your host. My name is Whit. Very glad that you're here today. This is episode number 38. And this week we have Pam Hausner joining us as our co-host. Pam, welcome to Om on the Range. How are you?
Well, hello. I am so happy to be here, Whit. As I've told you many times, I really love what you're doing with this work, the way it helps to connect our sangha and hopefully reach those even beyond our sangha. And this time when community and connection is so important. So thank you so much for the work you're doing.
That's nice for you to say. And, that is the goal, although it's also just nice to have a forum where people can come on and be authentic and share with us. So appreciate you stepping into this role. If you don't mind, let's take just a minute and let our listeners learn just a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is I'm a grandmother. My grandkids call me Mimsy. I have 5 grandchildren, and they light up my life. And 3 of them live in the Kansas City area, so I get to see them regularly. Of course, I've been married to Carl. Many of you know Carl. We'll celebrate our 46th wedding anniversary at the end of May. We're actually, well, I'll let you do math. So anyway, we don't need to do that. My father was a pastor, so I was raised in a spiritual environment that really embedded in me that desire for truth, for kindness, compassion for others, for living an authentic life. If there's anything I could marvel about my parents is they truly were authentic and modeled that well for me.
Wow, there's a lot there that really caught my interest. Congratulations on 46 years. That's an amazing number. It's also going to be hard for me to not refer to you as Mimsy going forward. That's a great grandma nickname, by the way.
We just moved to the Kansas side of the world, and I'm going to have fantasy plates on order that say Mimsy. So you'll be able to pick me out in the parking lot.
It's funny, we don't have grandchildren, my wife and I, but we have had that discussion about what those nicknames might look like.
Yeah.
It's a very serious conversation.
It snuck up on me, and I didn't really know my grandparents. My parents were older, so I never really had a relationship with them. And my idea was Whistler's mother. And I thought, that's not me. How can I be a grandma?
Right.
So I actually did some research. What are some good grandma names? And I found Mimsy. And I thought, oh, I can totally be a Mimsy.
Yeah, that's strong. And I'm going to steal your idea and probably do a little research too, because my suggestions have been shot down, and I'm going to have to do better, but I think I have a little bit of time, but we'll see. So tell everybody what you do at TBC.
So my background has been in business and marketing. So I homeschooled for a number of years. And so I have some strong organizational skills and some strong tech skills. And also remember, my father was a pastor. So he ran the church as well, right? So I saw Victor and all that Victor was carrying, and I thought, he needs help. I can help him. I don't know what that looks like, but I feel like I can take some of that off of his plate. And so I just offered to him, hey, can I help you out? Is there something I could do? And it grew into an executive administrative assistant position. I'm the coordinator for the facilitators and the sangha support. And even more recently, we're calling it Heartland Peacemakers, which is our socially engaged Buddhism training and support.
Wow. So you approached with a open heart and open hands to help,
Mm.
and then you were handed an entire circus, is what it sounded like.
Well, it was little by little, but the
Right.
needs are great.
Yeah.
And, the thing is, there's a strong team there. It's not like Victor was all alone, but I knew he told me he needed some help sort of with the administrative side of things.
Right.
Liz is outstanding at what she's doing. I have so much respect for everyone, really. And then Carol, of course, is epic. And Dave, I mean, I could go on and on,
Right.
all the support that's there for Victor. But there were some specific things that I'm happy to do that feel fairly effortless for me. So happy to do that.
This is probably not necessarily a strong point for Western Buddhism or TBC, frankly, but in all honesty, there is this authentic energy that our sangha in particular, and Western Buddhism, I think in general, brings out in people because once you drop some of the judging and some of the wearing of
Mm-hmm.
masks and can be authentic, you have
Mm-hmm.
this leftover power, so people want to help. But I
Mm-hmm.
sometimes wonder about our overall organizational skills, because it's difficult to corral that. It's so natural and it's a powerful force. But so what you're doing is tremendous. And I think you bring a nice level, steady hand to it, having worked with you on a couple of different things. So it's a big undertaking. And like I said, there's some power there for sure, but I think it's great where we're going, what you provide.
And I love Victor's approach to it because he's not fastidious about we need to have this done by this time, right? He's like, as long as we're moving in the right direction, he has a very organic, intuitive process, which does allow for that ease that you mentioned in like how we move forward. He doesn't want anyone that volunteers at TBC or me or anybody else that's doing work there to feel like it's a burden. He wants it to feel effortless for them. So we safeguard that very carefully, even if it means the progress is slower. At least there's progress. We kind of know where it's going. We're able to pivot if we need to. We've already pivoted on a few things already. So, it's just allowing that natural organic growth.
I think that's really well said. And I think because it's organic and because there is not necessarily a timeline or a schedule, it allows you to make better decisions. And yeah, you may go a little bit slower, but you get it right. It's organic and it feels right. So you have to have the right people, steering that kind of boat. And I'm glad you're doing
So
that.
just we might get it wrong too. That's okay. And then if we get
That's
it wrong,
true.
that's okay. Then
That's
we
true.
learn and we
Yeah,
just keep moving.
there are no mistakes. That's one
Right.
of the things I learned pretty quickly with my
Only
practice.
growth.
Yeah. So let's talk for a minute about practice. What does your practice look like, and what can you share about how that's developed for you?
So it started with mindfulness. I mentioned my dad was a pastor. I was raised in that. I raised my kids that way in the Christian tradition. It was very conservative. And it started to fracture. And then when it all fell apart, I really didn't know what to do. Because I was oriented already for spiritual practice, I found mindfulness and it allowed me to have a practice that didn't require a belief in any kind of cosmology. So it just felt really safe for me. And then I started listening to Dharma talks, and Dharma talks were blowing my mind because they were so filled with wisdom that was practical and applicable. And I tend to be a rather pragmatic person, even though I love the arts, right? I'm very involved in the arts, but there's also a pragmatism to me, and the Dharma just captured me. And so I went through the training to become a certified mindfulness teacher. And at the end of it, I thought, oh, I'll know everything now. But at the
Right.
end, I was really just qualified to teach mindfulness and probably even just an intro to mindfulness because I was so ignorant of what I didn't know. I'm currently in a Dharma teacher training program. I found one that will accommodate remote. I looked for a few years for it actually and have been delighted. And I'm in my third year. Next year will be my fourth year to get my certificate of Buddhist studies. And then that next year, I entered the Dharma teacher actual training part of that. So, what does this look like in my practice? So, it started with mindfulness. And so, I have a daily practice, but that daily practice, I still marvel at what I discover, even though I've been doing this for a bit now. It's just a continual unfolding. And I'll be honest with you, some of my favorite parts are when I uncover something I don't like about me. Like when I am working with, oh, I was really judgmental there.
Right.
Or, oh, I was so defensive there. I actually feel like, yay, I saw this.
Right.
Now I can transform it. Now I can work with this. And also understanding that this very practice that I'm doing is representative of what's happening all across the globe. It's happening in interpersonal relationships, it's happening in society, it's happening in the world. And so this practice has really helped me connect. What I am working at now is really dissolving delusion. That delusion that is a misperception of reality. Because unless you work at it, it doesn't really go away on its own. So I have to keep working at this. And it's a spiritual practice to help us see things as they truly are, to help us really see reality instead of all the stories that we're making about it.
So, a couple of things, but one of the things you just said was, it's a spiritual practice. And that's true, and I believe that, but it made me realize that for me, and that's 100% true. That's one of the things I love about having a practice and being a part of this. But in order for it to be a spiritual practice, you have to understand that you can't bring any preconceived notions or ideas to it. It's like, I have a spiritual practice. Okay, well, what is that? I don't know, because the spiritual side is greater than what I'm actually connected. I'm a part of it. I see glimpses of it. I feel it. But when I start putting words and ideas and expectations on it, it goes away and it becomes untrue. You can't build a room or a prison or a box around it, and you can't bring anything to it other than your true self. I don't know if you believe that to be true or not, but that just woke up for me when you were talking. So I thank you for that.
Yeah, well, you used, as you even described it just now, you used my understanding of what spirituality is. This is what helps me. And it's that word connection. When we are really authentically connecting to somebody, even if it's somebody we don't know very well, it's almost palpable. This depth of something sacred that is happening here, right? And so, again, the spirituality doesn't require a cosmology. It's that connection. It's that connection to our true, authentic self. I think you put it really well. Like, our head is so full of all these preconceived notions. So this spiritual practice is helping to free us from those delusions.
Right. As you were talking, I was thinking, you and I have actually spoken about different subjects where I had felt that. I'm using you as an example, and there's other people on the sangha where I've had that experience where it's like, it doesn't even matter what the subject is. It doesn't have to be. It's two people being so authentic and so connected that, again, that's the importance. That's the sacredness. That's where it gets holy. That's where the growth is and the love. And again, the subject doesn't really matter. It's great when it's something deep and meaningful, but it doesn't have to be. That's the beauty. So
that's why it happens on the airplane. It happens like if you're sitting next to somebody and, I don't want to be intrusive and I want to stay focused, or maybe I'm reading or whatever, right? But sometimes conversations strike up on an airplane and you have not the best situation because it's loud. You hear the plane, right? And your voice sounds small in that space. but
Right.
also you're sitting very close to them and you talk about something that maybe you share in common. And then, and it could be anything, but suddenly there's this connection. And I can't tell you how many times I thought, oh, I'm going to be friends with them forever.
Right.
But of course, you get off the plane, everybody goes their own way, and I don't have their contact information, and I never got their last name. So it doesn't happen, but that connection is so real, so tangible.
And I think it becomes more so as your practice moves forward and you start to notice it in other parts. You start to notice it in all parts of your life. So,
One of my favorite retreats that I went to, we were asked to walk out in nature and just pick up anything in nature. And I picked up this little 1-inch piece of bark that had some lichen on it. And I really connected to the lichen. If we made it in the move, I know I wanted to bring it with me, but I felt close to the lichen.
right.
So I hope that doesn't make me sound completely batty, but
Mimsy has lost it.
Connect. Yes, well.
Oh, well. Oh, well.
I'm getting up there.
That's right. So the other thing I wanted to ask you about was when you talk about a daily practice, is that a sitting practice? What does that?
Oh, yeah. So I have two main ways that I practice. Absolutely, yes, it's a sitting practice. I try to practice for at least 45 minutes. If I'm super busy, I know this sounds weird, I double up. Like I'll do an hour in the morning and an hour at night because I know that life is going to be demanding a lot of me, and it's really important for me to meet that with as grounded as I can be. So anywhere from 45 minutes to a couple of hours for sitting. And then I also have an art practice and an art meditation practice. I teach, it's called Insight Art Journal. So I teach mixed media art journaling to better integrate the Dharma into our lives, to include mindful art practices and creativity. So I also do that as well, but it is secondary to my sitting practice.
And how long have you been meditating?
I wish I would have marked it on the calendar, but I didn't. I didn't know that I was starting something that was going to change the trajectory of my life. But I kind of in my head, all right, if you're mathing, you're going to get this now. So I started around the age of 50. That's when my mother died. And I don't know if I went on this particular retreat. I went on a personal retreat with some books on mindfulness. I stayed at Conception Abbey up there in Maryville. I just booked a room for a few days and thought, I'm going to come out and I'm going to master mindfulness, because that was my worldview at the time. Like, you could just do this. And of course, I'm reading the book and all it tells me to do is to focus on my breath. And I thought, surely I'm missing something. I would flip through the pages like, did I skim over that? But so I think all that happened right around the time I was 50, and I'm 67 now. So it's been 17 years.
Okay. Okay. So I started in 2002. I remember that the first couple of times, it was maybe 3 or 4 times a week, and it might have been 10 breaths. Literally go down to my basement and light a candle and sit there and think that 10 breaths, was about half the day. It just slowly developed from there. I think by 6 months in, I was practicing every day. And, now it's about 30 minutes a day, sometimes an hour, but I don't miss much either. It's not even when I don't feel well or, if I'm out late or whatever. I talked to Born High last week and we were talking about how when I was drinking anyway, I would get up after a long night and still practice. And it wasn't because I was trying to punish myself or anything like that, but a hangover wasn't a good enough reason to miss practice. And it wasn't ever really I'm going to do this because it's right or anything. It's just the practice just became part of who I was. And I finally got to the point where it made more sense to maybe give up drinking than give up practicing. I was feeling so much better. I think it's interesting how, especially with long-term practices like what we're talking about, how they develop and they become so important to us But again, not because it's right or wrong. They become important to us because it's who we are. I think you gain authenticity from that practice, but it's also authentically just how you want to live. It's almost like a seed that's germinated and bloomed. And I just
Um,
referenced or crossed up my metaphors there with plants, but you know what I mean.
I love mixed metaphors. So I think the 45-minute thing came like before I really got into mindfulness. I had heard meditation's good for you. So I took a course in transcendental meditation, and their practice is 45 minutes. So that's what got in my head. But it also wasn't for me. I kept at it for a while and I thought, this isn't really it. And I just kept looking, and that's how I found mindfulness. Victor says, love you, Victor. He said, I was Buddhist before in a past birth. And so that's why I found it this time and why it resonated so deeply with me, because those karmic roots are there.
Being a Buddhist was never a goal of mine, even after practicing for 15 years. It's like, I think you and I are on the same page in that we both were really drawn, once we found it, to how practical it was and how much sense it made, not only in the health benefits, and just if I have less stress, my health will be better. That made a lot of sense. I also love the fact that I could do this and I didn't have to pay anybody. And that's not necessarily part of the Dharma, but maybe it should be, and I didn't realize at the time, because I really thought I was making a cost-effective decision. I guess I was, but also I took on, unbeknownst, that whole mantle of, hey, I'm going to be responsible for this. I'm the only one who can fix me. And I read a bunch of self-help books before and I'll still look at them occasionally, but they just, unless I write one for myself, I think that's the only way a book can be as impactful as we all hope it will be. I don't know that there's a question in there, but I just think it's interesting, like I said, how you become Buddhist because it makes sense.
Honestly, I resisted it because I had been raised a certain way and I had been a leader in that world. And like I said, I'd raised my kids. I was not looking for a new religion. And so even as I would participate in, say, the 5 precepts and taking those vows, I would question them, wait, if I do this, is this going to make me Buddhist? And they said, no. Don't worry about it. I have a good friend in this Dharma teacher training program. So even as I entered this, like in my head, I did not want to be a Buddhist. And I'm asking my friend who follows the Plum Village tradition and has been a part of that for eons. And I said, when did you know you were a Buddhist? And he's like, oh, I guess I never really thought of it. So someone said, you're a Buddhist when you call yourself one. That's it.
Right. Well,
I am getting more comfortable with it.
And I think also with our sangha, I like to be there on Sundays. I like the service and I like the Dharma talks. They're very helpful. But it's really just about getting in a room full of people that have chosen to make this kind of journey. They've taken responsibility for their spiritual life, that understand that spiritual life is actually their whole life. And they're in different phases of discovering that, just like you and I are. Yeah. But again, it goes back to, you're in a community with authentic people, and there's no one's trying to get to heaven. No one's trying to make money off books or anything else. We just want you the way you are. And lo and behold, it works perfectly. But, now I think maybe a more eloquent way of maybe saying all that is just people show up on Sunday and they tend to leave their ego in their car or somewhere else. And so it's just a beautiful thing. But yeah, so I think, it's almost like when you strip away everything else, then you're a Buddhist is what you are. So be careful.
Well, I called myself a bad Buddhist for a while. That was how I eased into it. I thought, okay, if I'm going to be Buddhist, I'll just think of myself as a bad Buddhist, because I didn't want to have some kind of a standard that I was trying to meet.
Right.
But the more I understand about Buddhism, I'm able to drop the bad and know that, it's like whatever.
We're all bad Buddhists.
It's like you said, it's just be authentic, right?
Yeah. So we're getting near the end of our time. We could have talked for another 2 hours about stuff, but I want to give you this opportunity to just talk a little bit about maybe what Western Buddhism might mean to you. And I know that with 3.5 minutes to go, that's not much time to
Sure.
work. But, what does that feel like to you? What does that mean? And go from there.
So I mean, it fits really well with am I a Buddhist or not? Because what helped me with that was understanding Western Buddhism a little bit better. I had these notions of what it meant or looked like to be a Buddhist, and I knew I wasn't that, and I didn't
Right.
want to be that. It felt artificial to me. But Western Buddhism is taking these core beliefs. This something, oh, I wish I could find that quote from Bhikkhu Bodhi. I just read it this morning. But taking these beliefs and putting them, adapting it, because to stay alive, you must adapt, right? And we learn
Right.
that from the environment. We learn that from the history of all things that are natural. We have to adapt. So we are adapting to what this looks like in our country with the history that our country has, the cultures that are encapsulated in this country, even to what's happening now, the constant turmoil. We are living out day by day what Western Buddhism looks like. And that's why I can call myself a Buddhist,
Right.
because I can do that. That resonates with how I understand how my experience is.
And that's beautifully put. I also think that it shines some light on this idea that, hey, it's developing right now in real time. And it's another way to anchor
Yeah.
yourself to the present moment. So it's freeing. There's some power there, but I think it all just is because that's authentically who we are. So we're getting ready to wrap it up. What would you like to say to our audience? Anything that you want to share? What's your best 1 minute bit of advice for somebody who might be interested in starting a practice?
If in starting a practice, be gentle with yourself and just let go of expectations. We are such a goal-driven culture. And so letting go of any kind of goals, and it feels a little like a free fall to let go of goals.
Right.
But just allowing yourself to be present with your breath, and it seems so minimal, but the more you do that, that practice alone unfolds. And when you feel ready, by all means, reach out and find a teacher that can help you with that next step and that deepening. But it really does begin by letting go of the expectation, that sense of goals, the sense of judging yourself for how your experience is when you're finally paying attention to the body, to the breath, and noticing your thoughts.
That is fantastic advice. Pam, thank you so much for serving as co-host. You've been tremendous. I want to thank you for your wisdom, for your time, and for your love and your energy. It means the world to us. I also want to thank our listeners for joining us here for number 38 on Home on the Range. I want to remind you that you can find us on YouTube or on Spotify. And if you are so moved, you can leave comments there, or you can email us at homeontherangepodcast@gmail.com. This is Whit signing off for Om on the Range, wishing you happy trails. Thanks to our Om on the Range production team for making this program possible, and to Mr. Brad Athey for composing and performing the original music. And to you, our listeners, thank you for being a part of this journey as we explore meditation, Western Buddhism, and the path towards a happier, healthier life. Remember, less suffering and more joy are available to everyone. It just takes practice. Until next time, stay grounded, stay kind, and keep finding peace in the simple, practical things. For all of us here at Om on the Range, happy trails.